What's up, guys? It's Missy. I am actually doing a missing persons video today. This is something a little bit different than what I normally do. So, as many of you know from watching my SimCity Build It videos, I run a crime page for the city of Marysville, Washington. I also run a page for Washington missing persons. This is not my page. This is somebody else's page, but I had come across this page and I thought, Jesus criminy, I never see half of these missing people come across my page. And it's surprising to me because of the amount of people that's been going missing around our area. And then I start thinking, I'm like, what's with these crime statistics, you know? Like, I start telling people about, all the stuff that happens around us, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you live in a real bad area. That shit don't happen here." And I'm like, "Really?" And so I look up the crime statistics for Washington State, and we're high, but we're not that high. And the people that are claiming, "Oh, that don't happen here," yeah, it does happen there. You just don't see it in the main media. You know what I mean? And so you start looking into these people that are missing, and it's just crazy how many people have just vanished, right? And yeah, I'm sure some of them ran away, but the bottom line is they may have started off as a runaway, but they may not necessarily be a runaway anymore, right? So a lot of these girls get wrapped into prostitution, or they get abducted, or whatever the case may be. So it's not, even though they may have left willingly, that might not necessarily be the case now. And you have to remember that if you look up the crime statistics for the city or state that you live in, if something has been considered a homicide or a suicide or a missing persons case, that means that they have obviously determined the manner of death, right? And so looking at all these people that go missing, it's crazy, all the people. I mean, look at, for Washington State, this particular website here, they went through and they did a thing for Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, because this is a Pacific Northwest page, okay? Now, I gotta flip my screen here because I think I clicked on Montana. Hang on just a second. Okay, so we got Montana, Idaho, Alaska, Oregon. Where's Washington? Just a second here. Okay, Washington's missing persons. So some of these are pretty recent, actually. This girl here, her name is Summer Day Aldag. She's 16. She was last seen in Wenatchee on December 27th in 2019. She's 5'3". Get a good look at her because she's been missing for a year now, right? Okay. Mariah Anderson, she's 16. She went missing September 20th of this year. She was last seen in Federal Way, Washington. She may still be in the local area, or she may have traveled to Puyallup or Yakima. Okay, Matthew Daniel. I don't know why it's... Let's see, Matthew was last seen near Rochester, Washington on February 28th in 2019. He was in an agitated mental state, and a search turned up no sign of him. So this guy, Jose, I don't know how you pronounce that, Jose Vargas, 17. He went missing from Renton on June 19th, 2019. Jerry Dean Armstrong, 47, Centralia, Washington, 2018, so 2 years ago. Ross Ballinger, 17, went missing from Puyallup. Hang on just a sec here. Shirley Bauman, 61. Shirley was last seen leaving for a camping trip in the middle of the Fork Road on North Bend. North Bend is pretty secluded area from what I remember of it. Okay, so that's, it looks like she may have went hiking. Let's see. Adrian Bentham, Tacoma, Washington. So she's 15. So it seems as though, I don't know her particular case, but it seems as though a lot of these 15-year-old to about 18-year-old girls start off running away from home with a boyfriend or whatever, and then the boyfriends coerce them into selling themselves for sex, right? Or tricking them into doing stuff like that. Or what's been word on the street out here is that these girls are being targeted by a group of individuals that are working in the Washington area. And this is just stuff that I've just heard, you know, on the street, so I don't know if there's any credibility to it at all. But it seems to be pretty accurate considering so many people talk about it. And what it appears as though is that there's a gang of people that are going around to the homeless encampments and the, you know, where all the runaways and stuff end up, and they're just basically offering these girls a place to stay, you know, some food, some drugs, and then next thing you know, they're turning tricks. You know what I mean? So then there's no way out. Now, this one I was surprised I didn't hear anything about this one, okay? And which surprised me because he's only 13. And he went missing on April 15th of 2020 from Vancouver, Washington. And I haven't seen any update on his case at all. So that's a little interesting there. This one here, he was 24, April 29th, 2020. His vehicle was found parked near the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Tacoma, Washington. Just vanished, apparently. Okay, Alexa, she was 16. She went missing from Olympia, Washington in July of 2019. 17. Okay, so he's 17. He went missing January 2nd, 2020. Camden. Let's see. Tumwater, Washington. Okay. 16, Tacoma, Washington. Geez, don't go to Tacoma. What the hell are you people doing down there? Okay, he may still be in the local area. This looks like maybe a possible runaway, just based on the fact that they say he may still be in the local area. Samantha Franklin, 14, was last seen in Tacoma, September 6, 2019. Now, what's interesting about this is the word on the street is the people that are affiliated with this are moving up from the Tacoma area and coming up here. Okay. I had, and I'm going to talk about an encounter that I had dealt with a little while back, and I'm not going to release any license plate numbers or description of anybody, but I am going to tell you guys what happened to me recently, which is a little odd. Okay, so Aaron, 16, Mount Lake Terrace, and that's not too far from me. I'm from Marysville. He's from Mount Lake Terrace. That's about 20 miles from me. Okay, so Tacoma, again, age 64. All of her belongings. She suffers from mental health condition and may not respond to her name. 58, was last seen in Bellingham, Washington, about 2 hours north of me. April 23rd, 2019. About a week later, his vehicle was found at a campground. Okay. Age 15, Tacoma, December 4th, 2019. She's way too young. These girls are way too young, you guys, to just vanish. Like, it's one thing when you take off for a weekend and you party with your friends and whatnot. You couch surf, maybe even for a couple weeks, a month, or whatever. But to just vanish for years, I mean, you would think that the families would be in contact with any family and friends and things like that that they would, you know, associate with, and eventually would be able to kind of get into the circle and say, okay, you know, somebody saw this girl, somebody heard from her, somebody's got to be taking care of her. A 15-year-old girl, 16, 17, 18, you don't just all of a sudden just vanish and all of a sudden you can support yourself. Somebody is feeding this girl if she's alive, saying that these girls are alive. somebody's taking care of them, feeding them. They've got to be eating and living somewhere, right? So if you're not finding them at their friends' houses, that's a pretty good indication that something more sinister has happened. Let's see here. 24, White Swan. Never even heard of that place, which is surprising because I know a lot of places out here. December 27th, 2018. Matthew was last seen in Clayalum Bay. I think that's the way they pronounce that, Clayalum Bay, Washington, January 14, 2020. He had borrowed a family's car to travel from Nia Bay to Port Angeles. The vehicle was found in a ditch along Highway 112, about 10 miles southwest of Clayalum Bay. Okay then. So you just crashed your car and then you vanish. That seems legit. Not. Okay. Raymond, 38. Let's see. He was last seen in Oakville, Washington on March 16th, 2019. He apparently became upset over a personal matter, left on foot in the area of South Bank Road. He may possibly travel to Lewis County or Thurston County. Okay. Cody, 16, was last seen in Spokane, Washington, April 23rd, 2020. Vincent, 24, was last seen in, well, it looks like he may have been hiking Mount Rainier, June 19th, 2020. Unidentified, Jane Doe. Maybe if you have somebody that has been missing and you didn't know about this website, maybe take a look at this picture and see if this is somebody that you know. Kirkland, Jane Doe. And this website, so you guys know, if you look at the bottom left corner of my screen, it's called For the Missing Pacific Northwest. That's what the page is called. Okay, Kirkland, Washington, January 2019. She was unidentified, human remains, possibly Hispanic, from Kirkland. She's believed to have been homeless. She is believed to have been 30 to 60 years old. Oh, that's a hell of a gap. What the hell? 30 to 60, right? Okay. Sam, 34. Was last seen backpacking in Mount Rainier National Park. Okay, then. Ian was last seen leaving Kent, Washington, 41. He never arrived to meet his friend as he had planned on May 23rd, and an unknown person was seen driving Ian's vehicle, which was later found abandoned with evidence of a violent assault. After day 23 of a manhunt, a suspect was located, arrested, and charged with Ian's he's suspected to be deceased, or presumed deceased. Michael, 31. His car has been located. He looks really familiar. Okay, Bonnie Lake Police Department. Robert Stanley, 93. Robert was nicknamed Bob. He was last seen in Centralia on July 6th, 2020. He usually walks with a rose gold colored cane. He suffers from dementia. Chelsea Gibson, 16, was last seen in Shelton, Washington, August 20th of 2020. See what I'm saying? A lot of these are really recent, within the last 2 years. This is crazy. Jerry Graves, 69, was last seen in Clarkston, Washington on December 25th, 2018. 14, Seattle, Washington, August 7th, 2019. Caden. Robert Hahn, 20, was last seen in Shoreline, Washington, December 20th, 2018. Jacob. He looks really familiar as well. He was last seen in Whatcom County. He's age 21. Age 31. Turner. Let me see how many of these there are. We're going to kind of just scroll here and see if we went through all those. Okay, this is about where we left off. We'll do it this way. So, I mean, here's another. Let's see. We'll do the kid ones for the most part here. So this one's 15, Spokane, Washington, April 7th, 2020. His name's Jacob. It's an interesting way to spell it, but his name's Jacob. 14, Tacoma. 5, Everett, Washington. This one, this is another one I was really surprised about because Everett's not far from me, and I didn't hear a word about this. She was last seen, she may be in the company of a non-custodial parent. Let's hope so, that she's at least safe, right? This is another one that, again, seems like it may be a non-custodial parent that has her. Let's hope, like I said, let's hope so. And as you can see, there's so many more as you know, you just continue to scroll and it's crazy. Where are all these people going? You know what I mean? They're not just vanishing, and it seems like they go missing, their picture gets shared, their family gets concerned, their family, you know, does all the footwork, and then they just get added to a pile that just gets forgotten about over time. And it's wrong. You know, these people are very much, they're just as important as it would be as if it was your, you know, daughter or mother or sister or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, if you have a loved one this one here, I remember this case very well because I was actually living in Edmonds at the time when this kid went missing, and I remember seeing his face pop up on the news, and I'm like, that kid looks really familiar. I think if I remember right, he used to walk past the what is it? There's like a QFC there in Edmonds on the street, and he used to walk past every day. And if I remember right, it could be a kid that just looked like him. But anyways, I remember this case in particular. Same with the Lindsay Baum case. That one hit really home for me because that little girl looks so much like one of my family members, and that case really bothered me for a long time. They ended up finding her remains, I guess, recently, and yeah, it's a really sad case. A lot of these are really sad. You know, unfortunately, her case went from missing to now they're looking for whoever killed her. I haven't followed up on that case in a while, but I do know that there hasn't been an arrest in that case. Okay, so there's a lot of unidentified remains on this website if you go and look this up. Let's see. But if you're not from Washington and you think that the crime isn't, you know, very much active in your area, you are wrong. Okay? It's very much active, and a lot of people go missing each year, and the human trafficking is just as bad as it's been, you know, for a while. And this brings me to, you know, what I was going to tell you guys about the incident that I encountered. Okay, so I'm at a gas station, okay? And I'm doing a YouTube video because I run YouTube videos for the game SimCity Build It. And I'm recording a video, and this gentleman, I was parked at the gas pump, and this gentleman had pulled up on the other side of the gas pump. And he was a black gentleman in a silver car. He comes up and he kind of, you know, gestures for me to roll my window down. So I cracked my window, and of course I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he says, you know, I just wanted to let you know that your back tire's flat. Now, at this point, I'm a little like, really? That's interesting, because I'm usually pretty good about knowing when my tire's flat, you know, being how it kind of makes the car ride like shit, right? And so I'm like, okay, cool, thanks. And so I go to roll my window up, and he gestures again for me to roll my window down. And now I'm like, yeah, you know, like, you got more to say? He's like, aren't you going to get out and look? And I'm like, no, actually. And he's like, well, if it were me, I'd want to get out and look. And I'm like, well, you know, I will when my friend gets here. And I made a point of saying when he gets here. And so again, this is my third attempt to try to roll my window up. And he says, aren't you gonna, well, what are you and your friend about to be doing? Aren't you gonna get out and check that? And I'm like, look, I already told you I'm not gonna get out and check. I'll have my friend look at it when he gets here. I really appreciate your concern. And I'm not really sure what we're about to be doing, but I'll let you know, okay? So, I'm like, do you really need to know what I'm about to do? You know what I mean? And he's just like, oh, well, you know, do you know where a black barber shop is? And I'm like, a black barber shop? No, I don't. I know where a barber shop is, but not a black barber shop. And he goes, oh, now this kind of gave me the idea that maybe he's not from here, or at least he's pretending not to be from the general area. And I said, well, you know, there's one on State Street. And he pointed right in the direction of State Street. So I'm like, okay, he obviously knows what's up, right? And at this point, I'm like a little uneasy about him. You know, I was already uneasy about him to begin with, but now I'm really uneasy about this guy. And I'm like, you know, I got to make a phone call. And he's like, do you smoke? And I'm like, no, I don't. And he goes, well, you're the first person in this town to say that. I'm like, uh-huh. Okay, cool, dude. And so I grabbed my phone, and immediately he must have got the vibe that I was going to call the cops. So he floors it, and I was able to get his plate number and obviously call it in. Now, he takes off like a bat out of hell, right? So I pull up from the gas pump. There was a guy that was kind of bringing stuff in, like on a trolley type thing. And I said, hey, can you look at my back tire and tell me if it's flat? Because this guy told me both my back tires were flat. And he's like, no, they're not flat at all. And I'm like, interesting. Very interesting, right? So I find that to be really suspicious. Now, it could have just been a really bad pickup line, right? So I'm like blowing it off like, okay, either he's a total weirdo or he's just really bad at picking up women. So the next day comes by, and this time I decide not to park at the gas pump. I decide to park at the, it's a grocery store down the street from this gas station. And I'm parked there, and I'm like kind of like wide out in the open at the very back of the parking lot. And this another black gentleman, different guy in a black car, he pulls up to me and he circles my car, and he circles it in a way like he's hunting me. And I literally mean like his neck couldn't be cranked any more than it is. And he circles me like he's like mugging me hardcore, like you would if you were gonna, like, if you were a wolf after its prey. And I'm like looking at this dude like, what the hell do you want, you freak? You know what I'm saying? So I drive and I go up to the light and I turn left and he follows me. Now at this point, I'm like, okay, I really don't think he just happens to be going the same way I'm going. So I flip a bitch. He flips a bitch. I flipped a bitch again. And we're on the same street. He flipped a bitch again. I flipped a bitch a third time. He flipped a bitch a third time. I'm like, okay, dude, this dude's obviously following me. So, of course, I go and I head towards the police station. I pull into the police station. And this guy goes back and forth about 20 times, right? And I'm on the phone with my grandma, and I'm talking to her, and I've got a friend that works for MPD, and I've obviously reported this to 911. I give it about 30 minutes. I don't see him anywhere, okay? I leave, and I don't see him for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Now I'm on the complete opposite side of town, and I'm sitting there, and I have my earpiece in, and I'm on the phone with my grandma. And I shit you not, I look up, and I'm at the intersection, and this dude is parked in front of my car, blocking my path. In the intersection, all these cars honking at him like, dude, go. You know what I'm saying? He is parked staring right at me. And I'm like, I immediately choked up. I'm like, like it took the breath away, right? I'm like, dude, this freak, what the hell does he want? You know? So because he had me blocked, I couldn't go, and the light was green. So I put my car in reverse, and I immediately turned right. He floors it through the intersection, flips a bitch, and is behind me in less than 30 seconds. And I'm like, fuck, here we go again, right? And I tell my grandma, she's like, okay, head to the police station. So again, I head to the police station. He follows me all the way to the police station and does the same thing. Drive past me, back and forth. Now, again, I've been reporting this to the police, okay? So we go through this for about 2 weeks. This goes on. Now, at this time, I go into that gas station where that gentleman was, the first guy that approached me, okay? And I'm talking to him, and I tell him about, okay, look, I had this guy approach me about my flat tire. Now I've got this weirdo that follows me around everywhere I go. And he was able to pull the surveillance tapes for that day. And I was able to get that guy's picture and get that guy's, I got the whole tape. I got a copy of the tape, okay? That's how I was able to get the evidence that I needed and all that. So the next morning, and I go there every morning to get coffee, or at least I used to. I go in there, and because now he knows who I'm talking about, right? The next morning, I decide to go out of my normal routine and show up about an hour earlier. And the same black car starts following me, except for this time, he follows me all the way to the gas station, right? Now, he pulls in right as I pull in. So I get a second copy of this tape. Because now I've got both of the black people, both of the black gentlemen, both cars on tape harassing me, right? He's standing at the front of the gas station, and he's just holding the door open, just smiling right at me, okay? Now, what's interesting is this guy's car is registered to somebody that he is not the registered owner of this car. So I type in this guy's name, and I do a people search for the registered owner of the vehicle. And I have a Facebook message request from somebody matching the same name, okay? Except for the last name was changed to be his middle name. And when I mentioned his last name to him, because he was sending me messages like, I know where you live, I live here, I do this, whatever. I put his name in on a people search, and I was able to get his address, okay? And I shit you not, I am seeing in front of this fool's house 1 year ago, to the day from when I started being followed, on Google Maps. Now, we all know that Google Maps satellite photos are taken at random. I was seen in front of his house because I had stopped at a yard sale. Okay, so you can see me, my mother, and my car in front of this guy's house, which I took screenshots of all this evidence as well. Now, the odds of that to me are astronomical. So that must be where he became infatuated with me or something. I don't fucking know. So now I've got the registered owner, the guy that's driving the car, and then the original guy that had harassed me at the first time. Okay? And they all seem to be following me on a continual basis for several months now. So this went on for about 2 months. Now I pull into the gas station again, okay? And I'm talking to the manager. I'm coming to pick up the copy of the second surveillance tape. And he goes, if you would have been here 30 minutes ago, you would have witnessed that same gentleman with the silver car tried to kidnap a girl directly across the street from the fast food restaurant. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? He goes, yep, she come running in here, and he showed me the surveillance tapes of this girl, and I didn't recognize her. It was real blurry. She didn't call 911, so she's just this unidentified female, okay, who ran into the gas station. She said that this black guy in a silver car, and she gave the description of the guy in the car, tried to drag her into his car and rape her, and she was able to fight him off, okay? So now there's 2. Then I get a phone call from a friend of mine who I had told this story to. And he says, what was the description of that guy? And I said, now you tell me what you saw. And he told me, and he matched the description. A friend of his was almost abducted by a guy, a black guy in a silver car outside the Safeway on Broadway in Everett. Now we've got 3 girls, all matching the same description of this guy, okay? So about 3 days goes by, and I don't see any of them. Then all of a sudden, I'm driving down the street, and I see the black car, right? And my sister, she's in the car with me this time. And she's like, yep, there's the creep. And I'm like, yep, that's him, right? So I drop her off after we managed to lose the guy, okay? And the next day, I go to pick her up, and he's following me. Now, I didn't want to lead him to her house, okay, because she had already had the lug nuts loosened on her tires, which I don't know if that was from that or not. I don't know. But it was very strange that all of a sudden, one day she wakes up and her front driver's tire is about ready to fall off the damn car, okay? That shit don't just loosen itself. Not that quick. Now, here we are, next day. I'm driving down the main strip, State Street, that runs through Marysville. And this guy's in the car again. And he's driving and he's following me. Now I'm on the phone with 911. And I've been calling them. I've been reporting this. Nothing's been done. And they say, head to the police station. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not coming this time. Every time I go to the police station, he's not going to follow me to the police station. Okay, so if you want him, come and get him. He's right behind me. That's all you got to do. Come and get him. Okay? So they're like, well, for your safety, we would really like you to come to the police station. And I'm like, well, too bad. Okay? We're driving down State Street. We're going north. You want him? Come and get him. And so I'm still on the phone with 911. Now the female officer is like, okay, whereabouts are you? And I'm telling her the cross streets as we pass them. We pull into the Fred Meyer, which is like a local grocery store out here. And he pulls in, of course, right? And so I park at the garden center, and he parks facing me, like he's going to watch me. And she's pulling in, she's on the phone with me, and she says, okay, and then she goes, is that him? And she points to the right, and I said, yep. She goes, yeah, he ducked down as soon as I came up, right? So she pulls her police cruiser behind him, and he floors it, okay? So then he stops, he realizes, maybe it's probably not a good idea to try to outrun the police. Now my friend that's a Marysville police officer, he messages me, and he says, come to me, which he works at the jail. So I says, okay, so I head towards the jail. And he comes out and he's like, all right, where is he? You know, thinking that the guy's going to be arrested, you know, because he's been harassing me and stalking me. And the female officer pulls in, you know, maybe 5 minutes after me and says, well, he says you're stalking him. I mean, get a clue, dude. You really think he's going to say, yep, that's me stalking her? Why would I stalk him? I do have better things to do, you know? And I certainly wouldn't be calling the police on myself, and it's a little hard to stalk somebody when they're following you, okay? So just the total arrogance, and it was ridiculous. And so now, check this out. This is where shit gets really weird. All of a sudden, all 3 of the people that were harassing me and following me just vanish. I don't see any of them. They're not staying outside the gas station. They're not following me around town. They just vanished, okay? For 30 days. I didn't see not one of them, okay? I'm not shitting you. Okay, so 30 days goes by. And then all of a sudden, I get approached by a gentleman outside of a gas station when I'm putting oil in my car. It's about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And he comes up and starts telling me these wild stories about some of these girls that have went missing in the area, and about this Highway 2 killings field, and this Snohomish County reporter that, and you can look this up, look up the Highway 2 killing fields out here. And he asked me if I'm the reporter for the Highway 2 killings field. And I'm like, no, I'm not. What the hell is that? I'm Missy, and I run the Marysville Crime Community page. That's who I am. Which a lot of people know who I am based off that. And he's like, oh, okay. And so he's knelt down, he's talking to me, and he's telling me this wild story about one of the girls that had went missing around the area, and just starts telling me all these crazy details about her case. And I'm not going to get into that for a number of reasons, but let's just say this dude's a little bit off, okay? And he's knelt down, and he's talking to me, and a black SUV pulls in. And he says, you see that black SUV? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, they're following you. And I'm thinking, how the hell do you know? You know, this dude's a little fucking weird himself. You know what I'm saying? And so he starts telling me this crazy shit about girls that go missing around the area, and how they're taking these runaway girls and they're raping them, and they're videotaping it, and they're selling these videotapes to the internet, and they've got them chained up in warehouses, and the human trafficking ring, and he just starts going off about all this crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, there could be some truth to it. I don't know. But the point is there's definitely something going on. Something bigger than just, oh, look, that person just disappeared. You know, people don't just disappear, okay? Not without some type of foul play or because they wanted to disappear. Now, how many of these people do you think disappeared simply because they wanted to vanish? Probably not very many, huh? Now, I'm sure that it may have started off that way in some of these cases where they ran away or whatever. But you have to ask yourself, just because somebody may have wanted to run away at the time doesn't necessarily mean that they are not coming back willingly, okay? Do you know how many runaway girls there are out there that I'm sure started off running away from home thinking that being with their boyfriend would be this fabulous thing, or maybe meeting somebody on the internet or whatever, and then all of a sudden what was started off to be a consensual act or a willing act has now turned into something more sinister, you know? And so if you are a young girl that thinks, oh, I'm going to run away from home, yeah, you have no clue what goes on the streets, okay? It's not a happy and good place, I can tell you that right now. I've seen some shit, let me tell you. Some real fucked up shit. One of the times that I was out in the Mount Vernon area, which is similar, it's near Bellingham. It's up north from Marysville. I was 18 years old back then. I was staying in a motel because I was homeless at the time. I didn't stay in that motel ever the fuck again, okay? Not after I witnessed 5 Hispanic males brutally kidnap this girl. She had to come running out the front door like a bat out of hell, okay? Like this girl was hauling ass. They caught up with her and they dragged her back in that room and they brutalized that girl. And it was horrible. Horrible. You never want to have to hear a sound like that. You know, and when you got to call the cops on something like that, you get a target on your head. But I did it anyway. You know, you have to call in for shit like that. There's a point where when you're on the streets, you have a street code that you have to live by where you're not a snitch, right? But then there's a point where it's like, that doesn't make you a snitch. You know what I mean? If your buddies want to beat the shit out of each other and the police roll up and you're like, I don't know what happened, nobody wants to talk, that's one thing. But if you see a child getting brutalized and you don't say anything, you a bitch. That's the way I see it. I don't care about snitch, you a bitch. Okay? So, that's all I'm going to say about that. All these kids, all these people, they matter. Whether they matter to you or not, they matter to somebody. And if it was your kid up here on this website, you'd want somebody out looking for your kid. You know? So, if you guys live in the Washington area, keep an eye out, remain vigilant. Honestly, you should be keeping an eye out, remaining vigilant anyways. But if you are female especially, definitely, if you can carry a gun, do it. Okay? We live in a world today where you need one. You know, if you don't have one, you're just going to be hiding behind somebody that does. In a shitty situation, you're going to wish you had one. And people always say some stupid shit like, oh, I don't know how to use one, or it would probably get used on me, or whatever. Well, then learn how. Because you know what? If somebody breaks in your house or if somebody tries to kidnap you, you're going to wish you did. You're going to be sitting there going, you know what? I would really be liking to take my chances right now and try to work that fucking gun. You know, like, get training. Take a safety course. Take a class. Do whatever it is you got to do. I carry a gun. I carry more than one gun. And I'll be damned if, I'm not going to say how many guns I carry or, you know, where they're all at, but let's just say this. If you aren't prepared, you're going to have a real big problem, you know? Mace, knife, gun, wasp spray, fucking a baseball bat. I don't care what it is. Strap up, because this world is really fucking sick. And a lot of people, they hear about this shit on TV or they see it, you know, and they hear about it on the news and they think, oh, that won't happen to me. It doesn't happen in my area. The hell it doesn't, and the hell it won't. Okay? I was almost kidnapped by people coming out of Walmart. I was almost kidnapped by somebody walking down the street. I've been almost kidnapped many times. This shit happens a lot. You know, they have ruses that they use. Maybe they knock on your door and say that they ran over an animal. Maybe they put a brochure on your windshield wipers so that you're out there dinking around with a stupid brochure and get knocked upside the head. Right? Maybe they zip tie your windshield wipers shut. Out here, they're taking license plates off people's cars when they leave the casino, and then they follow them and they hold their license plate up like, hey, dude, you dropped this. Next thing you know, you're getting robbed. Okay? So there's all kinds of things that they do, and especially with COVID right now, being the way that it is, people are desperate. They need money. They don't care. And they will kill you, rape you, stab you, rob you, and you'll just be another missing face on a flyer. And that's why I'm telling you guys to be vigilant and protect yourself. So I just wanted to get this out there, make this video, because I see so many people, oh my gosh, you know, and they're so just ignorant to it. They're blind to it. They think, oh, I don't want to talk about that. That's depressing. Well, yeah, but it needs talked about, you know? It really does. It might not be the topic you want to talk about, but it needs talked about. That's just all it is. That's all there is to it, you know? So, again, you guys, like, subscribe, and if you have a moment, take a look through some of the missing people in your area or in general, and share the video. Get some awareness out there on what people can do to remain vigilant and hopefully not be a victim of sexual assault or a kidnapping or whatever the case may be. Okay?